All right. Hey, 6A. Just wanted to call and say hi. And I'm really sorry. First off, I really wanted to make the YouTube live happen, but YouTube said I have to wait and they have to approve it before I can start live sharing. So I was really hoping to get to do that this morning, but didn't get to, unfortunately. So hopefully next week or later this week, I will try again. Just keep connected to Class Dojo and I'll give you a better update then. However, at the end of this video, if you still wanted to say hi, if you happen to have the app called Zoom, I know you may have heard of it, maybe you haven't. A lot of people have been using it right now with everything that's going on. So I will put up a link. There's a link in the bio or whatever you call it. I'm not YouTube savvy like a lot of you guys are. There's a link underneath the video right now where you can come and join me after this video. At about 11:30, I'll have that video, or I'll have that meeting started, so you can click on that link, type in the ID if you need to. That's also in the comments there, and you can come and actually talk to me in person, and I would love to see you. So I would love to see some of you there. I will be there at 11:30. If you still have questions or if you just want to say hi, I would love to talk to you guys and see how you are all doing. So as you can see, I have your packet up here. Hopefully you got to read that. I know that this YouTube live did not happen this week. I might try again later this week, or I might try next week, so be on the lookout for that. And like I said in the packet, you can also be working on Khan Academy. I know that some students have reached out and asked me to assign some Khan Academy assignments to them. I can look at your data from your test scores and upload something that would be helpful for you, maybe something you are still struggling with, so you can really try and reach mastery on that subject. So please reach out with Khan Academy. If you forgot your password, I can let you know that. Or you can also work on iReady. That's another great option for you as well. So anyway, let's check out. Hopefully you're able to solve this. I don't want to give you the answer yet. I want you to think about it on your own. But I will have the answer to this in the answer key packet that I post on Class Dojo on Sunday. Okay, so you will get to see that answer later. Hopefully you figure that out. We've done those in class, so I think you know how to do that. I know that some of us have been working on division of fractions. This is something that we've worked on a lot this year, but I know that some of us have still kind of been stuck with that, and that's okay. So something we talked about in class, for example, like number 7, 9 halves divided by 3 halves. Well, because they're both halves, right? If I'm dividing 9 cars by 3 cars, right, then that means I would have 3 cars. Well, 9 halves divided by 3 halves is going to be 3 halves, or 3 halves. Okay, so that's something that we talked about in class. And when we're dividing the same, basically with the same denominator, right, because this is really 9 halves divided by 3 halves equals 3 halves. When we have that same denominator, we talked about in class how we can also just divide the numerators because the denominators are the same. So if you take a look at, I know I had one student ask a question about, for example, number 24, where they weren't sure about what goes in that numerator there. Well, when you see that this is a 10 and a 5 in the denominator of both those fractions, so what Eureka is doing here is they said, well, what if we make both of those denominators the same? Well, when we make them both the same, if I have 2/5, right, and I want to take 2/5 and I want to make it have a denominator of 10, what we're making here is we're making an equivalent fraction. And that's something that we did a lot in class this year. So the way that I can make my denominator of 5 become a 10 is to multiply by 2. And if I want it to be equivalent, then I need to also multiply my numerator by 2. That has to be the same number. We know 2 times 2 is 4. So the equivalent fraction here is 4/10. So right here, what they're saying is I can do 6/10 divided by 4/10, right? So you want to put a 4 right there above the 10. And then from there, right, we just talked about how when they have the same denominator, we can really just divide those numerators. So now I have, this is going to equal 6 divided by 4, or 6/4. And if I were to simplify this, right, these are both divisible by 2, I would get 3/2 as my final answer. Now, it just so happens that this is the same answer as the one that we previously did, okay? So it's not always the case, obviously. The other way that we talked about how we could divide fractions, if we don't have the same denominator, so you could either create equivalent denominators like we did in this problem, or for example, like we have in number, let's take a look at number 33. If we take a look at number 33, 1/2 divided by 2/4, they don't have the same denominator. You could create common denominators, or what we can do is we talked about how we can multiply by the reciprocal. That's the other way that we can divide fractions. So here, instead of dividing, I am going to multiply. My first fraction stays the same, and I need to take the reciprocal of that second fraction, which we talked about in class. That means that we have to flip the numerator and denominator. So I have 4/2. That's called the reciprocal. 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 Now we know how to multiply fractions. We multiply straight across. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Well, I know that 4/4 is the same as 1 whole. So in this case, 1 would be your answer. Okay, so I do have 1 whole page of division of fractions, and I have some more where now we're getting some improper fractions, or we're doing mixed numbers. What we did in class with those was, once we have a mixed number, we're really gonna eventually do it the same way that we just did here, where we multiply by the reciprocal or create equivalent denominators. But when we have a mixed number, we need to turn that into an improper fraction first. So let's take a look at number 16. Okay, so I have 3 1/8 divided by 2/3. 3 1/8 divided by 2/3. I need to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. So what we did in class was, we know that this is the same as 3 wholes and 1/8. So I could look at this 3 wholes as being 8/8 is the same as 1 whole. Well, I need 3 of them, right? Those are all the same as 1 whole and an extra eighth. Well, all together, that's going to give me 24 plus 1 is 25/8. Or the other way that I know a lot of you guys remembered, maybe from what you learned in 5th grade, was we multiply 8 times 3 to get the 24, plus the 1 is still going to give us that 25/8. So that's the improper fraction. So what I see here is this is equal to 25/8 divided by 2/3. And from here, now we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did, where we're multiplying by the reciprocal of that second fraction. So this is going to be 25/8 times the reciprocal, which is 3/2. And you would get 75/16. And I'm trying to think if we can simplify that, and I don't think that we can. I'm pretty sure that this would be your final answer. So this would be 75/16. And again, just try your best on all these, do what you can. I will put the answer key online on Class Dojo this coming weekend. So I want you to take this week to work on it, try your best, and then I'll post the answer key. So if you have any questions on division of fractions, go ahead and put that in the comments. When I post this video at 11 in an hour, I will also be on YouTube, and I can comment back and answer your questions from there, or you can join the Zoom meeting and I'll answer those later as well. So let's take a look at our math mystery this week. It's the case of the giant goblin. You can read the backstory for yourself. Same as before, we have these different locations of where this could have gone down, right? And so you're using the clues throughout the rest of this math mystery to eliminate what would not work, which you know doesn't fit with the clue, and then in the end, you'll narrow it down to find your answer. So What we got here is we are working on geometry. This is something that we did right before spring break, right before we left school. We were working on all of our geometry. We were doing area. We talked about area of parallelograms. So when we were finding the area of a parallelogram, we know that the area for a parallelogram is the same as the base times the height. And we know if I have a parallelogram that my base is the bottom, right? We talked about how the base is the very bottom of that shape, just like the base of your house, right? Your house sits on the base. And then the height needs to be at a right angle to that base, right? My base and my height need to make that right angle. And where you see that right angle, it should be straight up and down to find your height. Okay, so if I'm taking a look at the example that they gave us here, right? In this case, my base is the 7, my height is 12. And we can see that now all we have to do to find the area is base times height, and that's how they got 84 inches squared. Area is squared. Okay, so you can find all of those areas of the parallelograms on your own. Again, if you have a question, put it in the comments or meet me at my Zoom meeting after this. Then we talked about volume. We talked about volume of rectangular prisms. We had 2 different formulas that we had used for volume. Okay, for volume, we remembered from 5th grade that this was length times width times height. Or we also talked about how we know that length times width is how we find area of a rectangle. So we also said that the area or the volume could be the area of the base times the height, where that capital B is the area of the base. Okay, so those were the 2 different ways that we know we can find volume. It's probably going to be easiest for you here to use this first one, but we want to also keep that second one in mind. So for example, with this first one that they gave us, we know that the volume is going to be 1.5 times 5.2 times 2, right? Length times width times height. If you multiply all those together, you can use a calculator. I'm sure most of you probably have one on your phone, or if you actually have a calculator, or you can do it old school and you can do it by hand. Right, we have 1.5 times, let's do 5.2 first. If I multiply those, 2 times 5 is 10. We're going to regroup that 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus the 1 is 3. Now I'm moving on to my next place value, so I need to add a 0 to hold my place value. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Add them up. 5, 8, 7. And because I have 1, 2 decimal places, I need to have 1, 2 decimal places in my final answer. So this will be 7.8 times, my last number is 2. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. I have a 1 decimal place, so I need to have 1 decimal place my final answer, and that's how they got 15.6 feet cubed. Okay, so or you can just use a calculator and you'll get the answer, which is what we did in class a lot as well. But you do know how to multiply decimals, so you should also be able to do that on your own if you have questions with that. Cool, let's take a look at the next one. Area of triangles. So in class, if you remember, we found the area of a triangle first by our peanut butter jellies. So hopefully you remember when we used peanut butter jellies and we said, how do you cut your peanut butter and jelly in half? Well, we know that when we cut our peanut butter and jelly in half, you're good.
I got a hungry baby.
I have a hungry baby. He needs to eat. That's okay. When you cut that peanut butter and jelly in half, right, we had a square. We cut it in half, and that made a triangle. We can see that triangle here, right? So now when I have a triangle, we know that the area is going to be half of the area of that square or rectangle, right? And we know that this whole square, we know that that whole square's area was base times height. So now if I have half of it, this area is going to be 1/2 of the base and the height. Or we said this can also be base times height divided by 2. Okay, so those are the 2 different ways that we could use find the area of a triangle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use that here, where we need to find my base first. We can see that my base here is 12. My height, same as before, it makes a right angle with my base, so that you can see the right angle here, so my height is 10. So when I'm finding that area, it's gonna be my base of 12 times my height of 10 divided by 2. Well, I know 12 times 10 is 120, and 120 divided by 2 gives me 60 inches squared. Okay, that's what you're gonna do for all of our triangles. We found out in class that we could use area 1/2 base times height for every single type of triangle. It doesn't have to be a right triangle. It could also be acute or obtuse. Either way, we just need to make sure that we're using the height that's at a 90-degree angle to the base. Cool. So now this is where things got a little tricky, and I know some of us really struggled here when we were finding these in class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this one. And let's open it on its own page. Cool. All right, so this is the first one that they gave us. What we did in class was we saw that we really needed to, we don't know how to find the area of a shape that looks like this, right? It's not a rectangle, it's not a square, it's not a triangle. Those are the things that we know how to find the area of. So what we did in class is we needed to cut up this shape into rectangles and triangles because we know how to find those areas. So for example, I could put a line right here and notice that I have one rectangle right here and I have another rectangle right here, right? So I could find the areas of those two different rectangles, and that will allow me to find the total area. So if I look at my blue one, it has a base of 2, right? Area is base times height. It has a base of 2, and it has a height of 4. So the area of that small one is 8 inches squared, right? That's just the blue. Now if I find the area of the red one, it has a base of 8, and its height is 6, right? And then I can just do 8 times 6, which is 48. I hope, I don't have y'all to correct me if I'm wrong here now, but y'all know I don't multiply very well, and that's okay. Inches squared. So this one's 48. So my total area would be the 8 and the 48 together, that blue and the red. So I have to add them together to find the total. 8 plus 48 gives me 56 inches squared. So that is how in your packet they got 56 inches squared, right? So for all of those different shapes, you just need to break them up into rectangles and triangles. It looks like for all of these all look like you are breaking them up into rectangles. This was not the only way that you could have broken it up. You could have also, right? You could have also done it a different way where you put your line right here, right? And you would have done 2 times 10 to get 20, and you would have done 6 times 6 to get 36. Well, I know 20 plus 36 is also 56, right? So either way, you would have gotten the same thing. And then very last thing is surface area. And this is something that we learned right before we left, right before we took our final test. And I know that that's something that some of us were kind of confused about. So I'm going to go through this one a little bit slower since we didn't get a chance to go through this one quite as long as some of those others. So let me go ahead and take this, copy, and let's put it here. Cool. So we can see that we have this rectangular prism. And what we need to do is we're trying to find the surface area. Like we said, that's like if I were to take a box And if I were to find the area around the whole outside of the box, that's called the surface area. So for example, if I were to wrap this rectangular prism with wrapping paper, right, like Christmas or something, then how much wrapping paper I would use would be my surface area, how much covers the outside. So I want to look first at the very bottom. So if I were to look at my box, let me grab a game that I have at my house. This is my husband's favorite game. He loves it. It's pretty fun. But if I had a box like this, right, let's say that this is my box that we have here. The bottom of my box would be this 4 that we see right here, right? That's the 4. And then the back edge is this other 4, okay? So this would be, that would tell me, this 4 by 4 would tell me the area of the bottom of my box, right? So this would just be my first area, would be the bottom, which would be 4 times 4, which is 16. Well, I know that the bottom of my box is exactly the same shape as the top of my box, right? So then this is also going to be the top, the bottom and the top. So now if I take a look, if I want to find the front of my box, right? The front of my box here is going to be 4 times a height of 1. So the area of the front, let me change my colors a little here so it's not too confusing. So here's the top in black, here's the front in red. My front is going to be my base of 4 times my height of 1. 4 times 1 is 4. So that's going to be for the front. And I know that the front of my box is the same as the back of my box. You can see that here. So this is the front and the back. Now finally, I want to look at the left side of my box, which would be this right here, right? This is the side. So it has a base of 4, right? We can see in my screen it's 4 times a height of 1. 4 times 1 is going to be the area, which is 4. So this is going to be the left side of my box. And I know that that's also the same as the right side of my box. So now if I need to find the whole area all together, I'm going to put that in purple, I think. Okay, that's going to be the bottom and the top. So that's going to be 16, the surface area is my bottom of 16 plus my top of 16 plus my front of 4 plus my back of 4. Cool, I got a new subscriber, Gio, hey. Make sure that y'all subscribe like Gio. And then my side of 4 and my other side of 4. Add them all up, 16 plus 16 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. Well, I know 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 16, okay? 16 plus 16 is 32, plus another 16 is 48. I think that's right. I'm pretty sure that's right. My units is yards, and since it's an area, it is squared. Ooh, that makes me wonder, did I talk about volume? Aha, I forgot to say for volume, in clue 2, volume, remember, is 3-dimensional, so this is feet cubed. If I didn't say that or if I said it wrong, I apologize. So sorry to jump back to that, just hit my mind, right? 48 yards squared, I did get it right. And that is the surface area, okay? If it helps you to actually grab a box in your house, I'm sure you have like a cereal box or maybe some crackers or a board game like me, right? Just to look at a box and think about the top, bottom, front, back, left, right. If that helps you to be able to make sure that you get all of your sides, grab one and use it while you're doing this last page of your packet. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, right, please go ahead and put them in the comments. I'm going to be on at 11 when I upload this video. So I'm going to be replying to all of your comments as soon as I get them. And Hopefully you guys can join my Zoom meeting right after that. So download the app called Zoom on your phone. It's free. All you have to do is you'll click the link and it should bring you to it. You might have to create an account, I'm not sure, but it should be pretty simple. Just hop on the meeting, say hi. I would really love to talk to you guys. I miss you guys a lot. I miss getting to do math with you. It's way less fun to do math by myself. So I hope that I get to see you guys here soon. Bye. I'll figure out how to turn this off now. That's the real question. And